channel. My name is Shahrzad, and this is really just a space for my artwork to show different paintings, drawings, and different tutorials, and just to give a little snippet of my life and what my artwork looks like. So really, I know what I'm doing is launching this channel, and you'll see I have different videos posted, whether that's weekly or bi-weekly, so hopefully the more the better. And I have my little pal Brownie over here with me. Come on, Brownie, come here, say hello. So what I have for today is a video where I recorded myself painting Andre Agassi. So I recently read his book, Open. This is his autobiography. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I highly recommend it. This was seriously one of the best books that I've read. So in case you don't know who Agassi is, he's really one of the best tennis players of all time. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with that. But so this really is his autobiography, where he walks you through his childhood, growing up with his dad, and kind of where his hatred of tennis began, but also how he was able to really cultivate his skill and push through a lot of different obstacles as he was growing up. So it walks through his childhood, it goes through the Nick Bollettieri Academy, walks through a lot of his different Grand Slams and titles that he's won, and a little bit about his romantic and personal life too. So really this book just inspired me to go ahead and do a painting of Agassi. It's definitely not something I'd attempted before, so I encourage you to come along with me as I kind of take this journey and go through my painting. So what I decided to do is an oil painting of a portrait of Agassi. So this portrait over here. So I've decided that I would like to go ahead and sell this painting when I'm finished, and put a portion of the proceeds to Andre Agassi's charity. So I'll put a link down below, both to his charity and also to my website where I'll have it for sale. So really what he's done is, I believe it's called the Agassi Foundation. I'll correct that if I'm wrong. But so it's, as you read through the book, you really read about his love and his motivation to help educate children. So he has a foundation where he helps educate both underprivileged children and children in his community. It's a seriously beautiful thing. Again, I highly recommend that you all go and read this autobiography. Not sponsored by it, it's just something that it was an informative read, but also just a fascinating read, and it was one of those where you wouldn't really expect it to be a page turner, but it is. So I was hoping to donate to his foundation once I'm finished with this. So if you're interested, if you know somebody who's interested, or if Agassi himself would like to go ahead and purchase it, that would honestly be the best outcome in this situation. Please go ahead and do so. I would really appreciate that. So without further ado, what I'll go ahead and do is jump into this video. So before I do that, if you're interested in my channel and watching me grow with my channel, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button to view some more content. Are you ready, Brownie? All right, so I'll see you on the other end of things. Bye. Okay, so here comes my lovely voiceover. So obviously I first got my inspiration for the video when I was watching tennis. I think it was the Roland Garros Open at that time, and it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it looked like it was Djokovic. Forgot who he was playing. Anywho, thought I would include just a little snippet of me cutting my microgreens. This was just how my day sort of began at that time. This was around the time that I was also reading the Open book. Again, highly recommend. Please go read it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so props to Andre Agassi. It was a beautiful read. So here are my little microgreens. I've got wheatgrass, pea shoots, radish greens, and what was the last one? I don't know. Anywho, that's irrelevant. So here is the first step of what I was doing, and I'll kind of walk you piece by piece. So I sped the video along just for the sake of time, but what I was doing was measuring out a grid. And as you can see in this picture, I put a grid over the picture that I was drawing from too. So because I didn't have an actual printout, which is what I recommended on the first hand, that you print it out just for the sake of the colors, it's a lot easier to paint or draw when you have an actual printout of the photo if you're referencing from it, rather than to use an electronic device. But so I had the grid on and then I was measuring that out. And so what I have here is sort of like an easy light box. So this is to all you who don't have the fancy equipment, or if you don't have the, a window to trace on or anything like that. It's really quite easy and you can really create a light box in a lot of different ways. So one way that I did this was I used my iPad and I put it underneath my canvas in a dark room. And then as you can see, the most important part with this is to make sure that your grid on the photo lines up with the grid on the canvas to make sure everything is up to scale how you want to use it. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of just adjusting and scaling the photo, making sure the grid matches at all times. When I move the canvas, I move the photo as well. So I just swipe with my finger. And then over here, you can see I'm just tracing the outline. Let's see. A really important thing is it's really easy when you actually have that grid to accidentally adjust the size of the photo. Make sure you don't do that. So there I had the final traced image, and then what I'm doing now is I was just going ahead and making the wash that I was going to put the underpainting with. So when you have a canvas that is that bright, and let's say you're using a white canvas, that is the brightest value that you can use in your painting or in your photo. So it's going to be really difficult to kind of judge your values if you're already working with the brightest and the lightest value that you can have. And so this is why it's pretty essential to go ahead and do a wash. So I think what I used at that time was burnt umber. So you can see me starting to prepare that. And then here's another tip is before you also do that or after, you want to go ahead and clear your palette. So this is the super satisfying part. I love to scrape the paint off. Word to the wise though, if you're using oils, it's likely that your palette will still be wet. So it may not be that easy to scrape, but I just use a basic good old box cutter and then I scrape away. Once the palette's clean, I can go ahead and take my burnt umber or sienna and I go ahead and mix it with, I would say, equal parts water, maybe a little bit less of linoleum or sunflower, some type of oil. Sorry, did I say linoleum? I meant linseed oil. So some type of oil you want to mix into that water and then go ahead and take your color, swish in the jar. You can add something like a coin to the inside, something that'll just help shake up and solidify and emulsify that blend. So once I've gone ahead and done that, close up that mason jar. It's really easy to just, I think this was either a salsa jar or it was some type of seeds or pasta sauce or something. And I just reuse them. So don't go out and buy jars. You can always reuse them. So here I'm going ahead and putting on a wash all over my painting. What you can do is go ahead and take a clean, dry cloth, as you saw that I did, and go ahead and wipe that all down. You want it to be a smooth, even surface. It's okay if the paint looks a little bit patchy like it does there. This is just the underpainting. You are bound to paint over on top of it, unless you just like the look and you want to leave your painting as it is. You're going to paint on top. So I went ahead and I did that first layer. And now it's kind of like tracing. It's pretty simple. I'm going to go on top and just put that very first layer of the painting. What I'm looking for here are not colors, but strictly looking at values. One way, if it's kind of hard for you to tell, is to go ahead and make that a monochromatic or just a one color image. You can do that on Photoshop or just on a phone app with a filter. And you just want to look at those values. So it's really easy if you look at it in black and white. And then you want to go ahead on top of that and start to do multiple layers. So something else to keep in mind with oil paints is you want to have very, very thin paint. So you want fat over lean. So what that really just means is you want to start painting with the thinnest layers possible that you can use. So here you can see it's pretty much watery what I'm using, and then I go on top with slightly thicker paint. In this case, I still want it to be thin so thin to the point where it's going to dry before I start painting on it in just a couple minutes, a few seconds to minutes. So what I'm doing now is just going over it and getting all of that darkness, making sure the values are correct. This is almost going to create a map, a really good way to help you navigate once you're trying to put that actual paint on top of this. So some parts of the video I have slow so you can see the technique I'm using, or if you're interested in my brush strokes, but otherwise I'll go ahead and speed this up so we can get on to the next part. You can see it's a pretty rough sketch. There's no need to be immaculate with it. You don't need to make sure you've got all your lines in the right places just yet. It's okay if it doesn't look just right. Just make sure you've got the right values in the right areas of the painting. So voila, look at this. This is my first brush stroke with the actual paint. The most important thing I would say when you're painting is make sure you have the right values, make sure it is the thinnest possible paint that you can use for the part of your painting where you're at. So in this phase, I'm still in the beginning. I want the paint to be thin so that I can paint more layers on top. But again, the most important thing is that you have the correct value in the correct area. So every stroke, it's taking me a while, but it's because I'm taking that paint that I mixed together and I'm holding it up to my reference photo and I'm matching that color. Don't go with what you think it will look like, go with exactly what you see. For some people, it helps if you actually flip your canvas around and paint upside down. And I want you to go ahead and color match every single stroke. So that's what I was doing. Is sometimes it looked kind of off, it looked a little bit weird, but I was just putting the exact paint value and color that I was seeing in my reference photo. So matching each brush stroke and actually physically taking that paint and putting it on the picture. Another thing that I love about using oils is, as you can see, if you mess up, oils dry very, very slowly, and actually the more medium that you put in it, whether that's some type of oil like linseed or sunflower oil, it will help that dry even faster. And also it will make the paint a little bit thinner. So I actually used a water-based paint in this painting. This is because I live in a small space with a small studio that actually has no ventilation other than some HVAC fans. So really I'm using water instead of some type of solvent. So this reduces a lot of those chemicals and toxins in the air. But so what you want to do is go ahead and mix that in with it and make sure again that you're getting the right values in the right area. I feel like I lost my train of thought there, so let's just continue on with this photo. So I went ahead, and sometimes I like to have some light values and also the darkest values on there just so I can kind of see the different differences in the tone. What you can see here is it looks like I was using a black, but I actually don't like to use black in my oil paintings. I don't even own a black paint. So what I typically do is I go with the color scheme of the painting, but also a good just tip to have on hand is if you're mixing your own black or something similar to black, all you really need are 3 basic colors. So a blue, an ultramarine blue, a red, so that could be a cadmium red or some other red, and then some type of yellow. So you want more blue than red and more red than yellow. Do not mix any white. Make sure that your palette has no contaminants on it, so don't accidentally dip it in another spot. So you mix those all together and it'll give you a really dark value. You could even tone it a little bit more on the brown side. So I also, at this point, was kind of feeling like it was difficult for me to gauge the values and the colors, so I decided to go ahead and put the background in. So I made the background based on the reference photo, but I went with, at first it looked a little bit sort of like a purplish brown, but I've turned it a little bit more blue and purple. I also thought that color would complement the color of the skin and almost contrast that a little bit. So the skin is a little bit, reddish orangish, so we know that the opposite of orange is that blue, and a little bit of the green and the purple to contrast the yellows. So that's the color that I went for in the background, and I wanted it to be a little bit dark. So here you can just see I'm still going in on that first layer and adding some some more colors, again, matching as I go. So making sure that I'm color matching, making sure I'm painting the colors that I see and not what I want to believe the color of the skin will look like. Something else that I will say is that there really is no skin color. So you can't really just mix one color and assume that's going to be the color of your skin. I guess, any skin tone actually is broken down into numerous values and shades and colors. You can have pinks and purples and reds and blues, and you're really just going piece by piece. So that's where the importance of the color matching is there. So in this portion, you can see even I was mixing in some reds towards the cheeks. There are some, I guess, warmer tinted browns over on the forehead and things like that. So another beautiful thing about oil is if you take a look here, if you just use a wet, clean rag or cloth, you can wipe away the layer because it's so quick drying, and then that allows you to build more on top if you need to. And if you mess up, just wipe it away. It's just like erasing something. So I adore that about oil. This is something that you can't really do with acrylic paints and other paints like that. So yeah, and you know what? Another good thing about having that warm underpainting is if you want to kind of wipe away, it'll just release the paint over to a more neutral medium value rather than just wiping away to a stark white contrast. So that's the beauty in that there. So here you can see I just kind of started working on the facial hair, and I was using stippling patterns. So another tip here is if you have an old brush, you can actually just go ahead and use that. So if it's kind of like scraggly paintbrush hairs, don't throw those away. Those have really good use. Every brush has its use, so don't neglect the ones that aren't so pretty anymore. But you can really just go in and use that stippling technique. So I'll say here, and I'll be totally honest about this, is I was not loving my painting at this point. So I thought, you know what, I put a little bit too much dark around the eyes. It was not looking exactly how I wanted it to look. I think even the eyebrows were a little bit thinner, and beware the artist's curse as well. So it's one thing to take a look at your painting and be critical, but also just to be critical, but also then just to be hard on yourself. So here in this point, I am giving him a clean shave and wiping all that neck back down. And like I talked about, it's kind of releasing more of the warm neutral tone underneath and not that white. But so I realized, you know what, it almost looks like he just hasn't shaved at all, and looking at the neck, it looks a little bit hairy, and not that that's a bad thing, but in this case, it didn't look exactly right, and it wasn't what I was going for, so I wiped that clean. I was giving the canvas a little bit more time to dry before I go back and just put a brand new layer there, but then here I was kind of fixing the eyes, so this is that phase where I went in and I started to not only put a next layer of paint on, but I was tweaking the image a little bit. So I made the eyes a little bit more similar to the photo. I widened the nose, he's got almost a little crooked nasal hump, and that's something that I didn't really capture too well, which I think is the beauty in the nose, but I also widened it a little bit, made it a little bit less symmetrical in terms of what I had initially. And now I'm really just going back and looking at my reference photo and making sure all of it looks about right. So something cool with the paint too is with oils, you can push around the paint. So where you initially set the paint is not necessarily where it's going to end up. So you can move that paint around, keep pushing the paint, and I encourage you to try that also if you're trying to, working on your own piece. But here is where, again, I kind of get to go a little bit more into the details, and now I'm adding in some more of those values and blocking in those values in the neck and those colors there, making sure the colors match. I was a lot happier with it this time around, so that was really encouraging for me. I think at this point I was also getting really tired, and another curse is laziness. I think that gets the best of us with a lot of artists, so beware the laziness. If you're getting tired, I would say one of the best things you can do is just give yourself time. Go to bed, get that rest, sleep on it, and just look at your painting with a fresh pair of eyes the next day. Don't ever force yourself to push through just to finish the painting and get over it. So here's just a little sneak peek at what my little artist corner looked like once I was finished. So you can see my palette here, got a lot of different paints on it, and this was the final product. So I really do hope that you all enjoyed watching this video. Please do let me know if you have any questions or comments, and feel free to leave them below and I will happily respond to you. And I would absolutely love it if you would like and subscribe for more videos. So thanks again. Bye.